Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today is December 30th, 2018, and we're looking at Trump tweets of December 29th. But Thomas, before we get started, I want to bring everybody's attention to a new citizen intelligence report we have just posted. It's entitled 2018, the year citizens busted the royals for their attempted overthrow of Donald Trump. And I have that link in the description box. What say you?
I say that's a beautiful link because my New Year's resolution is to end the American Revolution and get rid of the Brits in America. The British Spygate has been the largest hoax in U.S. history, and we want to play like it didn't exist. Well, it does. And what you did in your recent posting, as well as some very interesting news articles, videos that you'd posted, show that what we have been saying for quite some time, for 2 years, that the 28 treasonous crimes of Comey are now being recognized. They're being put on charts. They're being put in timelines. They're being completely explicated with enough video and enough commentary to show that you would have to be an idiot not to know that it was the Brits who created Spygate and were, in fact, meddling in our election, and always have been. They've never left. And we've demonstrated this through Serco, the Crown Agents, SES, the way that it works in terms of the fake justice system. And so my New Year's resolution is to get the Brits out of America.
And why this link is so important, because it's going to catch you up with everything we know so far. So if you listen to these two excellent videos, you're going to make sure that you leave no stone unturned and you're prepared to move forward. And then we give you highlights of things that we need to watch in 2019. One of them is the very corrupt John Roberts, and what is he doing on the Supreme Court to undermine the U.S. Constitution. We also do deep dives into the Tavistock Institute, because this is the British institution that is doing this massive propaganda and brainwashing that we see worldwide. So we show you the pointers of where we're going in 2019, what needs to be busted. And if you are an independent media creator, check and see the last section, because if you do videos and articles about those subjects, send them to us, because those are the kinds of things we would like to post. Now, let's get started with the tweets. I am in the White House waiting for the Democrats to come on over and make a deal on border security. From what I hear, they're spending so much time on presidential harassment that they have little time left for things like stopping crime and our military.
It's such a beautiful honor to get to read between the lines on Trump tweets, because we know we have a direct connection to the White House. Oh, that's right. He's in the White House right now. Oh, that's right. And we're not paying him to be there. But Pelosi, who is worth tens of millions of dollars on her, Speaker of the House salary and, being a repeat Democrat who can't leave Washington, D.C., she's in Hawaii right now. Of course, she doesn't have any MSM members over for Christmas dinner. And as a matter of fact, I hear that she will not be having a party for the new caravan that is amassing in Central America to attack us, 15,000 strong. She won't be inviting them to New Year's Eve party that she'll be having there in Hawaii.
Well, it seems to me a great place for her to meet with the Chinese.
Well, Dianne Feinstein, I'm sure, is without a doubt. Her and her driver are meeting with the Chinese as we speak, along with Mitch McConnell, as they're making their new plans for the new year for their obstructionism. Because what we're really seeing is President Trump is in the White House saying, you are a bunch of fake kabuki theater political nonsense. One day, Schumer wants a wall. A few years later, he doesn't want a wall. And so what is really being looked at here? What is really being shown to be the truth that is happening in the Congress, in the House, and in the Senate? We are seeing Trump take the wall issue and stick it in their face because he jacked them over 2 years ago when he got the omnibus budget because they thought they jacked him over. But he got his NDAA, so he doesn't have to fight for the military. As a matter of fact, he just got, through his legal brilliance, the Coast Guard to be paid during this shutdown. But a shutdown, what does that shutdown really mean? It means until you allow me to be the President of the United States and secure our borders, I don't have to sign any appropriation bills. I don't have to sign any bills that support spending from the House or from the Senate. And he has the right to do so because he has the duty to defend us We've already seen these caravans come, and we see the truth of the matter. Why is he focusing on the border? Because it shows Nancy Pelosi to be the true nutcase that she is. She says she doesn't have the votes to pass a bill on a border. Sorry, it was already passed. You're a liar. You are such a liar that now what is generally seen as the uniparty battle between who wants to have the wall and who doesn't want to have the wall, between the non-MAGA Republicans and the socialist Democrats, because they're becoming actually fascists. They're becoming Marxist, socialist, fascist. If you do not support the president's duty to defend us and secure the southern border, you are a criminal. There is no reason you could possibly be a politician when you refuse to follow the law.
Well, John Roberts doesn't think that the president has that ability or right to do so.
I'm glad you brought up John Roberts, because John Roberts is the person who allowed Barry Soetoro, with 14 aliases, to still run for president, though he didn't have a live birth certificate from Hawaii, couldn't prove he was born in Hawaii or Africa, or even who his father was. And we know that the documents that we have now are forged and faked. Thank you very much, John Roberts. John Roberts, who now offends fake asylum seekers and wants to repatriate them into America and bring them back across the border, who already demonstrated themselves to be illegal aliens faking to be refugees seeking asylum. This is who he really is. But this was the same exact globalist, chaotic meltdown promoted by Hillary and Barry. Why? Because when you say Pelosi, you say George Soros. Do you not understand that Pelosi is fighting for her offshore payment with George Soros? When you say Pelosi, you say open borders, you say open society, you say George Soros, you say pay me my money, just as you have paid Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama. George Soros has paid $18 billion just in the last year to non-government organizations to fight us in the last election. And yet this is stolen money. No taxes have ever been paid for. So what I say is Trump is there in a genius way, making sure that you know that instead of focusing on the military, the Coast Guard, our southern border, and the duties that the president has to defend Americans. No. Right now, the new head of the New York Attorney General, who took corrupt Eric Schneiderman's position, has said that she's spending all of her money before she even gets in office, creating teams of people who are going to look for any crime that Trump has ever committed. In other words, you can't get any more corrupt, fake justice than to say you're going to go look for a crime. How about when John Roberts didn't look for the crime of Barry Soetoro, telling us that his real name was Barack Hussein Obama, which it was not and never was, or that his mother was a CIA agent, or that her parents were CIA agents. Hello, John Roberts, you are corrupt, and we recently busted you on that, and you basically need to be impeached. But Trump is there being paid nothing while Pelosi is going out making sure she gets her George Soros offshore money all set up for the new year. And all we're really seeing is that the democratic system in the House is so crooked that Pelosi is going to keep the government closed down over the issue of whether or not she gets elected as the Speaker of the House. This is how bad it is. She doesn't even know who the president is. We've caught her dozens of times referring to the president with different names besides Donald Trump. She, honest to God, doesn't even know where she is half the time. And yet she is going to lead the Democrats. Well, she's not leading Democrats anymore. Those are social fascists.
Just had a long and very good call with President Xi of China. Deal is moving along very well. If made, it will be very comprehensive, covering all subjects, areas, and points of dispute. Big progress being made. And Thomas, did you see that we'll be selling rice to the Chinese?
And not plastic rice like they sell to us, which is just shocking. It's shocking, but it is shocking, Betsy, because we also see that right now, as we told everyone, the longer this goes on, the better position we are in and the more genius Trump is. He has some of the tariffs down to zero. That's right. Zero. First time we've had a level playing field with China since Bill and Hillary sold us out with the through the World Trade Organization and giving them most favored nation trading status, which should have been illegal, seeing that they were the worst of all criminal nations on the face of the earth. But what does Trump mean, all subjects? He means there's not only economic wars going on, tariff wars, but 5G is being argued about throughout the whole world. Why would we allow China to have anything to do with 5G or Huawei or FTE? Why would we allow these largest Chinese tech companies to have anything to do with our infrastructure?
Well, why are we even putting up 5G? It hasn't received long-term testings on the effects of human beings.
And the long-term testing, even with 1G, shows that, in fact, we are being poisoned by electromagnetic frequency radiation, which is conclusive, but we have the wrong agencies taking a look at these things. But China with 5G, China with intellectual property theft, China with the technology incursions of subterfuge and basically undermining our country. These are the things going on. Trump has already broken their back over and over and over again, and almost no one gives him credit for it. The One Belt, One Road was an announcement by totalitarian Chinese communists that they're taking over the world.
Yes.
And they were very proud of it.
Well, the other name for that is our way or the highway.
Correct. And that's really, you almost stole my joke from me. That is true. It's the American highway. It's not the Chinese highway. The one road, that is the American road. That is not the Chinese road. We control the currency of the world. One belt. Trump has taken that belt of President Xi and used it to spank him. And it is embarrassing because as he holds back on settling this tariff deal, this trade deal, this economic deal, which also considers all these other things I've mentioned, they are losing across the board with all other countries. They moved in to buy resources with inflated American dollars. And now that their economy is crashing, they are now having to basically leverage, blackmail, and extort every country that they have started any new deal with since the One Belt, One Road. And it is all faltering. And many countries are just saying, sorry, we're just going to default on our debt with you. Okay, as that China defaults on the debt, the resources that they bought, they no longer have, which promotes the manufacturing. And if we don't buy that manufacturing, they falter. They turn into our vassal, exactly like Japan. We stick with our recommendation that all you fools who went over to China thinking that you were going to manipulate China, you're going to lose big because Trump is the only person in history ever to defeat China. Not only that, he's doing the same as he sits there in the Oval Office in the White House with Mexico. What did he just say? Oh, you don't want a wall? Fine. I'll close the border for trade. I will simply go to pre-NAFTA deal, cut off NAFTA, and end all trade with Mexico. Remember the last caravan that tried to attack our country? What happened? Mexico stood on our side once we secured the border. And once we stopped the flow of traffic across the border at Tijuana, what happened? We saw tens of billions of dollars a day go down the toilet for Mexico. Remember, they take advantage of us. We don't take advantage of them. We close the border, their economy collapses. That's the reason all of a sudden Trump softened them up and they agreed to keep these caravanners who, remember, are filled with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, Hamas, Venezuelan, Russian, and Chinese communists, just to name a few of our enemies. That's who those people are. Okay? Yeah, they want to blame us for killing some babies at the border. Please, please, please. Obama human trafficked so many babies at the border. Don't even get me started. I'll go there in a minute. But the reality is, Trump can close that border, go to pre-NAFTA agreement, end it, and that is the end of Mexico not building that wall for us. Mexico will then, remember, what is the number one business of Mexico? Drugs across our southern border. Tens of thousands of people this year, 2018, have died, and many of them children, and many of them human trafficked women, sexually trafficked women. So many people have died on that southern border. that you can't even count all the people. They find mass graves all the time. So don't tell me about 2 children who died of flu because their father, in one case, didn't give them water for 2 to 3 days while they had a raging fever. Tell me about closing the border so that the CIA drugs, the Chinese drugs, and all of the evil that I just described stops coming across our border and stops being invited to our border by the social democrats who are nothing more than Soros puppets who want open borders, open society, which means migrant invasion.
Which means death to America. All nations out there must protect their national borders now. We have to stop globalism, and every nation state has a responsibility to close up the borders and kick out the globalists. Now, the next 2 tweets are really what you were getting into. Any deaths of children or others at the border are strictly the fault of the Democrats and their pathetic immigration policies that allow people to make the long trek thinking they can enter our country illegally. They can't. If we had a wall, they wouldn't even try. The 2 children in question were very sick before they were given over to Border Patrol. The father of the young girl said it was not their fault. He hadn't given her water in days. Border Patrol needs the wall, and it will all end. They are working so hard and getting so little credit.
When he says pathetic immigration policies, what he means is illegal immigration policies. And they're not even policies. This is a lack of enforcement created by executive orders by Barack Obama, the criminal who was never an American to begin with. His name is Barry Soetoro.
But that John Roberts allowed to pass the clearance so that he could run for president. So in the end, all of this falls squarely on John Roberts. So how dare he overrule or thwart the will of the president to shut that border down and keep the illegals out? This man is traitor number 1.
John Roberts, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the Democrats who refuse to create any kind of reasonable immigration policies and stop creating executive orders that insist on a lack of enforcement of existing policies, regulations, and laws. All that means is those people are fascists who, in fact, are killing people on our southern border. They're inviting them there to die. They're inviting them there for human trafficking. They're inviting them there for organ harvesting. They're inviting them there underneath deregulations created by Hillary and Obama. Let's just look at a few of them. Catch and release. What does that really call for the Democrats? New Democratic voters. 485,000 catch and release supposed asylum seekers, none of which will, over 95% of them will not receive the attribute of asylum seekers because they're all fake. 485,000 of them will not show up for their court cases. Thank you very much, catch and release. We call that new Democratic voters. Or remember, when you say Democrat, you say socialist, fascist now, because that's what we're talking about. How about DACA? Oh, that's what we call Democratic Party members, because DACA was simply an order by the president not to follow the law. That's what DACA is. How about anchor babies? Okay, anyone who has a brain can read the descriptions that show that the Constitution does not create any legal status for an anchor baby. What those are really called? Future Democrats. And remember, all DACA, as they were here, started having anchor babies, and then that made DACA legal because of anchor babies. This is a catch-22 circular argument. How about Barack Obama's broad asylum regulations? What do we call that? The real name is migrant invasion. Barack Obama invited the migrant invasion through what he called broad asylum regulations, which now all you have to say is you fear. I'm afraid of something in my country. And that's what now literally John Roberts and his fake justice people literally send lawyers to the border to tell people to say the phrase, I fear. I fear what? Well, I can't get into that. But because I fear, I am an asylum seeker. Wrong. Okay, how about unaccompanied minors? That was the one I really liked with Barack Obama, because what happened? Of the tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors who came to our border, were taken in by Obama, put on airplanes, and moved throughout this country, we can't find any of them. that may be an exaggeration. We can't find certainly more than 90% of them because they were human trafficked. And we know where some of them were human trafficked too. So when we talk about the border and we talk about a wall, anyone who doesn't want a secure border is a criminal who is not only killing those 2 babies who had the flu, but inviting in pandemics into our country, viruses into our country, illnesses galore that have actually been eradicated from our country are being invited in by Barack Obama's deregulation of immigration policy with the support of Hillary Clinton and the Social Democrats / fascist / Soros-supported non-government organizations, as well as the communists who are invading us through these caravans.
But it's not just the Democrats, Thomas. Of course, we know that there are many Republicans that are doing the bidding of every globalist you named there.
Yes.
So it's Democrats and Republicans. Okay, next one. For those that naively ask why didn't the Republicans get approval to build a wall over the last year, it is because in the Senate we need 10 Democrat votes, and they will give us none for border security. Now we have to do it the hard way with a shutdown. Too bad.
They could change the rules if Mitch McConnell wasn't a Chinese spy. If Mitch McConnell wasn't sold out up to his eyeballs with his Chinese collusion, especially through his wife. So why won't they actually pass it in the Senate? Because they will not change the rules. And the rules should be changed. So get rid of the filibuster. Get rid of having to have 10 Democrats supported. But no, Mitch McConnell, just like Nancy Pelosi and just like Ryan before her, they are as corrupt as can be. They get many bills every year that are already suggested out of committee that will get support and will pass. But nope, it comes down to the leadership of the 2 parties and what they allow to come on the agenda before the Senate and the House. It is so corrupt, it is disgusting. If you could see what they reject every year, or then like a Paul Ryan, he rejected 4 or 5 different immigration bills so he could put his own bill forward that he knew was going to fail, so that then he could say, oh, I addressed that question. No, he did not. He basically set it aside by putting forth a very bad bill. They know this. These things are decided long before these bills come before the floor. They don't even get on the floor if they don't pass committee. And the committees are as rigged as they could possibly be by, of course, bipartisan uniparty agreement between the leadership. So what we're looking at here is nothing more than an agreement, as you say, between the globalists, which are both Republicans and Democrats, for an open society. This is George Soros's attack against America. The second American Revolution is being fought right now. We never won against the Brits. Remember, George Soros's top members to the Open Society Foundation are members of the Privy Council. Lord Malloch-Brown, one of the founding members. Jeffrey Patty, all these people, the Strategic Communication Laboratory, the manipulation of elections. This is all British. This is George Soros.
One of the biggest propaganda lies ever told out of the Tavistock Institute and promoted by the British monarch is that we, the Brits and the Americans, are friends. We're great friends. You know, because if they keep saying that, then people won't pierce the veil to see who was really behind the overthrow of Donald J. Trump. When you walk it back, you go right smack dab in the middle of the Privy Council. Don't tell me that Queen Elizabeth, Prince Charles, and that daft Philip don't know what's going on.
Oh, even Robert Hannigan, the head of their General Commission headquarters, which is their NSA, worked together illegally with John Brennan to use Fort Meade, Maryland as their headquarters to spy on, literally, wiretap Trump Towers. This is a fact. And then 3 days after inauguration, Robert Hannigan quit his job as basically the head of their NSA in Britain. So this was Boris Johnson. This was the FCO. This was their foreign. This was their top people. Also in Australia, their top Russian representative, their top ambassadors, both were involved in the setup of George Papadopoulos. In other words, the British Spygate. So when we're talking about the Brits being involved, you can't get any more involved than they are, and we simply need to end our relationship with them. And They're already, when they were members of the European Union, which they are now, even after Brexit, they will still not be our friend.
Well, can we also round up all the Jesuits, put them on a boat, and send them back to the Vatican?
Well, right now it looks as if the pedophile ones are being rounded up and sent to the Vatican so that they can receive immunity so they don't have to go to jail.
Well, then there won't be any Catholic priests left.
$4.5 billion have been settled in just the Jesuit sexual pedophilia cases in America. There are an equal number that have yet to come to anyone's attention. And mind you, out of a $4.5 billion settlement, not one priest went to jail. Actually, not one single priest was actually indicted. So, wrap up all the Jesuits and send them back.
Including Cardinal Dolan. You know, he's the top dog of these guys here in the United States doing all this. He needs to get back to the Vatican too.
Francis and the previous pope are as guilty as they can possibly be of creating the greatest and most powerful pedophilia ring, but not just pedophilia. This was a type of grooming that led to people who were then targeted for MK Ultra mind clear.
Well, John Roberts is a Catholic, and so is Brett Kavanaugh, and they are also senior executive service. Are we saying that in our investigation in 2019, we might find that they themselves are mind controlled, or through the Tavistock, through the Brits?
Well, I think that Kavanaugh is obviously controlled by his Catholic associations, which was seen very clearly in what he had to say, as well as John Roberts and his epilepsy. He is obviously being blackmailed. So what we see here is the incursion of the ancient 2,000-year-old system of subversion, subterfuge, and espionage that has come out of the Vatican still goes on to this very day, and that the Brits picked it up and they brought it into the realm of banking and into the realm of economics. And then when it was brought to America, it was put into the way that global corporatism moved right into a bureaucratic substructure that creates a shadow government that works for the United Kingdom, not for the United States.
And that would be your senior executive service and also Serco. It's hard for people to see that. Well, how could these people exist and operate within our government? That's exactly what's going on. And they are beholden to the Brits, not to the United States Constitution.
The lead golden shares, even in our most important military-industrial complex corporations that we work with that often get no-bid contracts, who also work for the Five Eyes and our enemy because they're all international corporations, those are all controlled by the Queen. And so Lockheed Martin, that's a Queen company. When we talk about uranium in America, the Queen basically ruled that until Putin got in on it because he was invited in by the Clintons, of course, and then now the uranium battle went on, and Uranium One was just the tip of the iceberg of the way that the Brits and the Russians bought out our uranium industry, and we basically have no control over it whatsoever. We give our controls away to the same old non-bid contracts, in the USAID and OPIC and the Crown agents and Serco and SES always give to the same exact people, the same rat lines of corruption, and follow it back, and you'll follow it straight to the Privy Council of the Queen of England.
Well, that's what I always say. You know what the Queen's got in that purse is her golden share, because she owns it all. The next tweet is 2018 is being called the Year of the Worker by Steve Moore, co-author of Trumponomics. It was indeed a great year for the American worker, with the best job market in 50 years and the lowest unemployment rate ever for blacks and Hispanics and all workers. Big wage gains.
And mind you, that is while the U.S. Federal Reserve, fighting for their life, was attacking Trump the entire time, with 7 raises in the interest rates. Those are attacks, folks. So we have the best results of any president in history while he is ahistorically being attacked by the U.S. Federal Reserve, who is the enemy of the U.S. taxpayer, the enemy of we the people of America, the enemy of our constitutional republic. The U.S. Federal Reserve is basically a bunch of British, German, and Danish bankers and their family. It's just that they've turned into asset management companies that hide the money so well that when you try to follow it back, you'll hear that's just a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. We've proven it to you again and again. We've given you all the statistics. We've given you the reports. we've given you the facts. And what is going on is it's the same old bankers and brokers.
And the thing is, if we could get rid of the Federal Reserve, we could get rid of the income tax. I mean, people, listen, you get to keep that money instead of giving it to the Federal Reserve that turns around and lines the pockets of all these bankers you just mentioned.
All the taxes collected in America in a year do not pay the debt we owe each year to the U.S. Federal Reserve. It is odious debt. For that reason alone, it can be canceled completely.
Next tweet. Absolutely nothing on Russian collusion. Kimberly Strassel, The Wall Street Journal. The Russian collusion fabrication is the greatest hoax in the history of American politics. The only Russian collusion was with Hillary and the Democrats.
And your beautiful posting on this very topic shows that to such a degree that the only place you're going to find more clear information is if you go back and look at all of our intelligence reports. We are the only ones who actually have named some of the crimes, which have yet to even be acknowledged and named when they happened, why they happened, and who led them. But the point is, we have already seen untold tens of millions of dollars spent on 3 intelligence agency reports trying to find any Russian collusion. And the only Russian collusion was found with the Obama administration weaponizing the FISA court, with the Obama administration weaponizing the NSA and Admiral Rogers' audit that he did on that, and also the Inspector General's audit and report on the FISA court abuse. So we have shown that tens of millions and millions and millions of dollars have done everything but show you the truth, that the Brits, Christopher Steele, Alexander Downer, Sir Dearlove, all of them were behind the British Spygate attack on our election. And it was a very powerful attack that is not over yet because it became Crossfire Hurricane. It turned into a CIA counterintelligence operation where Comey denied 3 times that there was an investigation of Trump. That's because there was an operation. And by the way, Peter Strzok, he still isn't fired from the CIA. He is still running Crossfire Hurricane in support of Robert Mueller, who took over for Strzok. And remember, we are the only ones who pointed this out. And now, just in the last month or so has it come out, we told you from the beginning that the second person in charge of the FBI counterintelligence would have written national security letters to have the warrants to put on the people in Trump's campaign to spy on them. And now we know that's true. We know that the FISA warrant, the Title I FISA warrant on Carter Page, it was never even heard in a court. It was an application. They didn't use those. They used Peter Strzok, one of the biggest criminals in U.S. history. Someday, Benedict Arnold will pale in comparison to this man when we know the truth, and the whole world knows the truth, is still operating this Crossfire Hurricane. And Mueller, over $30 million to continue Crossfire Hurricane and the fascist attack, literally almost like a Nazi SS attack upon a sitting president. This is a color revolution, a George Soros color revolution that was supported by John Brennan through the CIA, by Comey through the FBI, by Hillary Clinton and her gang, Loretta Lynch, John Kerry,
John Roberts on the Supreme Court.
And John Roberts in the Supreme Court. So we wanted to add that element recently because people might think that the Supreme Court hadn't been weaponized. Oh, no. Totally weaponized so that the highest court in our land, the most secret court, FISA court, supposed to have the highest integrity, has the lowest. And John Roberts lets them continue to do the same nonsense to this very day. And yet we ignored, after all of those investigations, we ignored all of it. And we ignored Christopher Steele. We ignored Sir Dearlove. We ignored
Who's
Stephen
the we
Huffman.
you're talking about?
Our government, our Congress, our Senate, our Supreme Court, our federal court system. Ignored all of it. There is obstructionism going on with so many of these people that we have named, that what is amazing is that now they're going to try to start all over again with a Congress that is Democratic/Socialist/Fascist, all over again. So the probably $100 million that has been spent, throw that in the toilet. We're going to start over until we find a crime that Trump committed, and that's what Nancy Pelosi, and that's what Chuck Schumer, and Adam Schiff and Mark Warner are all about.
Thomas, I want to see the text between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. I do not believe for 1 minute those two were lovers. I believe it was a scheme to hide the text that will be very, very damaging to the DOJ and FBI players, and it won't surprise me in the least if in those texts, and I want to see them all, that there are not conspiratorial plans for the assassination of Donald Trump.
Well, we've already pointed out that there were at least two references stating, insinuating at least, implying that they wanted to kill Trump. And one said she was going to carry her extra gun, which is the illegal gun that you throw at the scene of a crime after you murder somebody with that gun. She said she would have to start carrying that gun.
That was in the
Trump.
Discussion between Agent 1 and 5?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, there was the references to the coffin or the nails they were putting in his coffin. There was references to death. And then we know there were multiple assassination attempts. So yes, you're right. And what's really interesting is that we need to remember that in the end, I think Betsy better be given credit for this. Strzok and Page, they weren't lovers, because in the end, it's very obvious that Strzok had used her to set her up as the fall person, not only for Andrew McCabe's illegal orders to her to leak information to Devla Barrett, but all the different leaks, okay? So in the end, what did she say to her supposed lover? Don't ever text me again. And now, mind you, the 19,000 missing texts, complete nonsense. We were told there were 55,000 texts to begin with, when there's actually more than that, and that they were all lost. And then we were told, oh no, Michael Horowitz had preserved them. And then we were found out, oh no, well, Michael Horowitz preserved them because we know that they were already preserved by the telephone company, and all we had to do was subpoena the telephone company and they could give us the copies. And so Michael Horowitz then found the copies, and then they weeded out those 55,000 and let Peter Strzok determine which ones he was going to release to the public. And which ones did he release to the public? The ones that incriminate Lisa Page and others, not just him, but not a single word, not a word that would have been passed between the lips and the ear of lovers. Not one reference to them having any friendliness whatsoever. As a matter of fact, there is adversarialness in them. And in the end, remember that the phone, they came up missing. Andrew McCabe's phones are missing. The text messages are missing. Comey's messages are missing. All the sensitive time that we need from the Page Strzok messages, they're all missing. And so is it a surprise that more of them come up missing? No. Michael Horowitz is as crooked as a dog's hind leg. We told you that from the beginning. Huber's crooked. Loffman's crooked. Carlin's crooked. We told you this from the beginning. Priestap is crooked. Do not believe for 1 second that the Inspector General is going to do anything good, or that Andrew McCabe will actually spend one single day in jail. Oh, no, no, no. Because the Inspector General office is where truth goes to die.
Last tweet, Thomas. This looks like a quote from Jesse B. Waters. It turns out to be true now that the Department of Justice and the FBI under President Obama rigged the investigation for Hillary and really turned the screws on Trump. And now it looks like in a corrupt and illegal way. The facts are out now. Whole hoax exposed.
Jesse, you are so far behind times. Interviewing you over this issue would be like interviewing someone that you interview on the street that doesn't know what IRS stands for, or who the president is, or who the vice president. You are a dimwit. There was no investigation on Hillary. Yeah. You silly, ridiculous, pathetic excuse for a journalist. There was the midterm exam, and she was never a subject of that non-investigation, which was then demoted to a matter. As a matter of fact, they were all given immunity ahead of time. Hillary was never investigated. She was never questioned. And there was never a 302 written up from the time that she did chat with Peter Strzok, who exonerated her ahead of time. He actually rewrote Comey's memo that was read to the public before any of this. Peter Strzok exonerated her from her email espionage, second worst in history, maybe first worst in American history, espionage revealing that caused the death of many. We now know that there are at least a dozen Chinese agents who are locked up or dead because of Hillary's breaches, because we now know that the Chinese got a courtesy copy of all 375,000 of the emails that went back and forth between Hillary's server in her bathroom basement and everywhere else that it was located. And that was just the tip of the iceberg, because Imran Awan had Podesta and the DNCs and the DCCCs and all of them, and it's all been revealed. All you have to do is read it, folks. So I'm sick to death of people like Jesse Waters finally, after 2 years, beginning to catch up when he's supposed to work for a news agency that supports our president. You are a dimwit.
Fox News does not support POTUS. In fact, Fox News is losing a lot of its audience, and the reason is that they want truth, and all Fox does is keep you in a spin zone and keep you from seeing truth. The truth is very evident now.
My New Year's resolution? Say goodbye to the Brits. Poke out 4 of the 5 eyes. We don't need them. We don't need New Zealand, Australia, Canada, or any of the 54 Commonwealth nations of the United Kingdom, because they consider us to be the 55th nation in their Commonwealth, and that they have never let control of us loose since the American Revolution. And I personally want to end that association and win the Second American Revolution.